Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very big day for Dorito fans everywhere. For a long time, we've been hoping for a Dorito-colored controller, but they've always said no, it's not going to happen. Finally, Sony has delivered with a beautiful white canvas ready for our dusty fingers to paint it beautiful shades of orange. I'm talking, of course, about the release of the PlayStation... What's all that noise?
Oh, it's me holding multiple controls into the camera. So continue, please.
Okay, I was like, what the hell? I can't actually see what he's doing. So, the release of the PlayStation 5 controller has been unveiled to the world. There's a lot of detail about it. Do you want to say anything before the drop, Sam?
Yeah, so I'm excited for this. It's going to be really good to see a white controller, I guess. Drop! Before we start, I do have the multiple controllers in my hand. Ralph has them too. We've got the PlayStation, we've got the Xbox Elite, and the Pro Controller for Switch, and we can all see what they look like. We don't need to go to some PowerPoint screen. You can see them right in front. Okay. Now we're going to show you now.
I also have the Nacon PlayStation 4 controller. I have the Razer Raiju controller.
Ooh, I remember using that for a while. That was awesome.
The Astro C40 controller, which is my main driver right now, great controller. I also have one of my favorites, the Mario Gold, what do you call it? Switch Pro controller.
Yes, I've seen you have that.
That's a good one. I like that one.
And we have the VR world too. I've got the VR controllers here. I love going into VR and doing all sorts of things with those controllers in VR world. But look, I think there's a lot of controllers out there. There's a lot of designs, all right? But the best design forever will be the GameCube controller. They're not bringing that back, sadly. But they do have a new design, okay? It's a mixture of like PlayStation, Xbox looking thing. What do you think?
Well, that's certainly the gag. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the details, because today Sony did unveil the PlayStation 5 controller. It's called the DualSense controller, okay? As opposed to
sounds like that sounds like a dildo. That sounds like a dildo. The DualSense.
It really does.
Like, I mean, if I walked into a store and they were like, "We've got the DualSense," it just came in. I'm like, "Oh, baby." You know,
does it have one of those suction cups at the end?
Does
Ask
it have,
Sam. So,
does it have vibrate to it? It does. A new type of vibrating.
All right, let's focus on the details. This is the statement from Sony. They said, "We've reached an exciting milestone with PlayStation 5 as we're starting to ship our new controller in its final design to developers who are implementing its unique features into their games, but they wanted to show everyone first, yada yada yada. Here it is. It's the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller." First of all, Sam, let's talk hot takes on the design. What do you think of the design, Sam?
Look, I mean, it looks fine, right? It's not like it's some horrendous, disgusting monstrosity like the original Xbox controller was. If you are bigger than 5 years old, you can get your hands around this thing. Compared to the Xbox when it first came out, it was literally too big for my hands.
It is quite a contrast to the current design, I think, particularly with regards to its sort of like curved shape around the sides. You kind of wrap your hands around the PlayStation 4 sort of sides at the bottom. Do you know what I mean? They kind of feel like little tubes that you grab hold of.
Totally.
Versus this looks more like a controller that kind of sits in the palm of your hands. A lot of people really hate this design, can I say? Like, a lot of people think it looks absolutely garbage tier awful. I think it looks pretty cool, personally.
I think it looks cool,
reminds me of like... It reminds me of Detroit Become Human, you know, that game?
Yeah! Yeah, I don't know why, but it does. Yeah, it definitely feels futuristic. But look, I remember there's definitely a detached... They're moving away from, you're right, that thinner bezel, the thinner hand feel onto the side. It's definitely... connected. So there's no... I'm actually holding the controller up to the camera for y'all folks. They're definitely getting rid of the thumbsticks underneath. It's not so protruding now. But look, I really think it comes down to, is it comfy? Is it super comfy? And that's all people will care about. And does the back of it... I don't know if we've seen the back of it. Does it have those extra buttons on the back? Because I feel like that should be... that should be part of it now, you know.
This is a really good question. Most Pro controllers that you have on the PlayStation 4 at this point have back paddles, right? So these are all the Pro controllers that all have
Xbox
back buttons. These are all the PlayStation licensed ones. This is the Xbox Series 2 Pro controller, which also has back buttons. The PlayStation is currently selling back buttons as an add-on that you can add to your PS4 controller, right? Everyone was expecting that the PS5 controller would have those by default, but they have not listed those as features here in this list of additional features coming to the controller.
Which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they didn't show a picture of the back of it, but I think if it did have those back buttons, they would have said so. It's possible that they're looking just to kind of like keep it sort of simple, because having buttons on the back is obviously more complicated in inverted commas. But really, also though. It could be, I know, but also it could be a cost-cutting thing, or maybe even a revenue-generating thing where they can sell that add-on and make more money from it. You know, versus including it as a standard inclusion. I don't know. Either way, it doesn't look like it's in there.
Yeah, have we seen the Xbox controller yet? We have not, right? No.
Yeah, we've seen the Xbox controller. It's basically the same. There are some differences, but it's basically the same.
It's obviously so similar that it hasn't even stuck out in my mind that it's different. But look, I do feel like, you know, times are moving forward. If you are, you know, if every Pro controller or every controller that is trying to give you bang for buck is including these back panels, put it in. And number two, if all these creative ideas that might surface now with stronger engines and more complicated games that are going to come out, give the consumer more buttons to actually play with, you know? It just feels like the natural progression forward.
Even though there aren't these back buttons, there are other features being added to the controller. Quote, "This is why we've adopted haptic feedback, which adds a variety of powerful sensations you'll feel when you play, such as the slow greediness of driving a car through the mud. We've also incorporated adaptive triggers into the L2 and R2 buttons of DualSense, so you can truly feel the tension of actions like when drawing a bow to shoot an arrow." Now, this haptic feedback stuff is a part of the Switch controller. I'm sorry, but it's all marketing bullshit. It just feels the same. It just vibrates or it doesn't vibrate. Like, I don't care what anyone says. No,
well, look, we don't know that.
Marketing.
We don't know that, but I'm pretty sure it's bullshit. It's like, this controller has 2 joysticks. Oh my god, that's fucking revolutionary, everybody. No, but we've already seen it, but it will be interesting to see. And they're also, on a side note, talking about how they're going to revolutionize audio in terms of the actual PlayStation. Is this in the same camp of just making things sound like it's revolutionary, but not really? Maybe.
Well, I do think that stuff on the audio, they do sound like they're doing some real stuff there. Like, it could actually be quite a game changer given how much focus they've got on it. Versus this, I think we've already seen haptic technology in vibrating products before. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. But look, maybe I'm just being cynical. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe it'll make some of those games that are a bit cheeky on the PlayStation Store a little bit more immersive. You know, maybe. Who knows? We'll never see.
Yeah, all those porn games you talk about at the PlayStation Store, Sam. Yeah, because they're all up
they're on there,
right
man.
Now.
You haven't seen them? Jesus, what are you talking about?
The other thing is that the share button is gone and it's being replaced by the create button, which they actually are being a bit coy on details. They said they'll have an update on that later on in terms of what that button does. But look, it's basically the same thing in terms of its position and what have you. But what it does from a create perspective is very unclear at this point. The big thing though that I think is really funny is that, quote, DualSense adds a built-in microphone array, which will enable players to easily chat with friends without a headset, ideal for jumping into a quick conversation. But of course, if you're planning to chat for a longer period, it's good to have that headset handy. Now, that's gonna be a lot of big problems, everybody. Big problems. Problems.
Number one,
big problems.
Who really wants to feel like there's a control that's always listening to you? We've already seen it before with Kinect. You had to be part of the internet the whole time. And everyone's like, the Xbox is listening to me, okay? And this is gonna happen with the PlayStation. People are gonna be like, Sony now is going to be pushing ads on me because I talk about God of War. Stuff like that, right?
Yeah, true. People have that. Yeah, true. People will be yelling into their PlayStation controllers like, Xbox, go home.
Yeah. And number two, people, you know, if it's automatically on and you're part of a COD game, you know, there's going to be some stories that come out where someone's like, hey baby, why don't you come over here? I'll put the controller down. We'll have some fun for a while. And then the whole thing's recorded, you know, like that's going to happen. We've seen it on Twitch.
Love it.
Yeah, we've seen it on Twitch. It has happened in the past. Partly it is a good move because I do like the idea of actually having something built in. If I want to quickly say something to a team member, maybe it's easy to do it, but there's going to be more problems, I think, than solutions with this.
It still has the symmetrical thumbstick location, but you know, as compared to the Xbox being offset, but it is definitely more reminiscent. There are plenty of memes on the internet about how similar it looks. There's the good old Spider-Man meme here of the two controllers facing off against each other. There's this awesome tweet that I saw. The PS5 controller looks exactly like the Xbox controller, and the Switch Pro controller is just basically trying to like stay on the down low. Because seriously though, if there are any comparisons to be made about which controller is more similar, the Switch Pro controller, man, come on now. That's
so true.
That is ridiculous. True. Just please, you're taking the piss there, Nintendo. And then of course there's also the questions about just how dirty the white controller, because it is white by default. There's no other colors at launch, it seems. There have been mock-ups of black controllers, but they are just mock-ups, right? What Sony has shown here is a white controller, which is what will launch with the console. They've also dropped the colors of the buttons. They're just they're sort of like that black and white look right now, as opposed to having color, which I think kind of sucks. Look, I like the design overall, but I think it is reminiscent of Xbox's design, and I think that the loss of colors is a shame, and I think that being white by default is a bad idea because it's going to get really...
I definitely think also there's some branding to be talked about with the original PlayStation controller, where the triangle button is green, the square button is that's such a characteristic of them.
What color is the square button? What color is the square button, Sam? Without looking at your controller.
Oh, okay. I know the X button is blue, and I know the triangle is green. The circle is orange, and the it's like a pinky. It's like a peachy thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's like
peach,
a peachy
absolutely.
thing.
That's what most gamers would call it, peach for sure.
Is
Sam.
it peachy?
That's exactly how they do it. Yeah, that's right.
Whatever.
Yeah. So look, that's the controller reveal. There was another statement at the back here, just talking about how it's such a revolutionary design that really pushes the PlayStation 5 into the next generation and shows our commitment to pushing boundaries. Blah blah blah. Come on, man. It's basically the same controller in terms of functionality. It just has a slightly different design. Blah blah blah. But look, as I said, I think it looks cool. It does get us one step closer to the release of the PlayStation 5. You will notice that I accidentally turned on my PlayStation behind me while I was recording because I was handling my PlayStation 4 controller. So good to know it still works. That's right. Anyway, guys, that's the news for today. We almost got into Valorant. Turns out we didn't get into Valorant, so we're really sad about that.
That sucks, man.
There were complications with our key and using it from Australia, which we can't go into.
But it was our fault. It was our fault.
It was our fault. And we will try and somehow swindle our way in there, but it's not looking good right now. So we'll have to probably wait to play Valorant with the rest of the normies, not the pro streamer kids who are doing it right now.
Which is a real shame.
We're people of the people in this moment, Sam. You know,
we are, and I'm not liking it, to be honest. I'm really not liking it. I'm really not. Hey, I do like my elite status right now. Okay,
nice. Anyway, guys, thanks very much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Lay it out.